Hey Floss Tube, this is Brian. Welcome back. How's everything going? It's an early Saturday morning, and I thought that before I got to doing all of my chores and things that I need to do today, I thought I'd do a Stitch With Me video. And I am working on, of course, Winter Sampler right now. Last night I stitched this from here down to here, and now I'm planning on stitching this block right here, which is inside the heart. This is going to be a picture of a girl, and she's holding some valentines. So you can see this is her hand in a glove, I think, and these are some valentines. This is an envelope. So we're going to see more of the envelope as I stitch this. We're going to stitch to right about here. And I just thought I'd do this to show you a little bit of how I stitch and just to spend some time with you. So I've had lots of questions about how I stitch diagonally, and probably the key thing that I do is I mark my chart, and I'm going to show you the section of the chart that I'm stitching just to show you how I mark it. So this is the area that we're going to stitch, and you can see I've marked this diagonal from you've got a 100 stitch block here, a 10 by 10 block, and I just mark the diagonal from one corner to the other of that block. And I've already stitched this, and I've stitched this area down here, and now what I want to do is I'm going to stitch all of the stitches that are underneath that diagonal, and that includes the stitches that I've marked. So I'm going to stitch from here down. So marking tells me what I'm going to stitch. And of course, this is, I'm stitching on my frame, and my frame is sitting on my table stand. You're sitting on top of that, and the way I stitch is I put my chart, which is on my Kindle Fire, I put that underneath, on the table underneath my frame. And when I sit down, I can just glance down underneath my frame, and I can see what I'm supposed to stitch. So let's get started. Generally what I do is I look to see kind of how the colors are running, and that kind of helps me decide whether or not to start with the stitch on top or the stitch on bottom. If the colors are running in a slope, like up here where they're positive, I would start with the top, because that way I can do more stitches before I have to park. And I think that'll become obvious as you see how I stitch. Of course, if they were going on a negative slope, then I would stitch with the bottom. So there's not really anything obvious here. I think I'm going to start with the bottom here. So I'm going to, basically I start here on my column. I'm going to start with this thread. Okay. So how's your week been? Mine's been pretty good. It's my first week back to work since Christmas, and I kind of had a hard time getting into the swing of things, but we did okay. We went to Utah and Idaho for Christmas, and I spent some time with my family. We were with my family for New Year's, and then we had to move my son into his apartment at Utah State because he's starting his first semester at school. Okay. So the next stitch in this next column that's this color is up here. And my rule is that I don't make a stitch if the stitch to the left of it is empty, because I don't want to close in that stitch. So I'm going to stitch something else, and I'm going to stitch this. Anyway, we drove, when we left my parents' house to go to my mother-in-law's house. My mother-in-law's in Salt Lake area. We drove through Logan to get some stuff done for my son. And that's kind of out of the way of where we normally drive. But we don't go that way very often. And it was kind of fun to drive through there. I told my wife that it felt like I was going back in time, because there's all these towns in southeast Idaho that they really haven't changed over the years. They look exactly like they did when I was going to school and driving to school from my parents' house. They look exactly the same. And it was just like I was going back in time. So we drove down through Downey and Swan Lake and Benida. If you're a Napoleon Dynamite fan, you might have heard they mentioned going to Benida once, and that was really funny when I saw that movie, and I was like, I know where Benida is. It's just this little town kind of out in the middle of nowhere in Cache Valley. And then, of course, Preston and Franklin, and then down through Smithfield to Logan. The university has has really changed. They've built a whole bunch of different buildings and moved things around. So I walked around campus with my son a little bit just to kind of get him oriented a little bit, and it was kind of fun to see the university and see everything that they've done to change it. Okay, I started stitching that next column and realized that I couldn't, because I had to do this. I had to do these last two stitches. It's funny, I've had all sorts of, every once in a while I get someone who's following me on Instagram that asks me about how I stitch, and they ask me about several things. So I've had a question recently about back stitching and why I don't, if I back stitch as I go or not, and I don't back stitch as I go. And the reason why I don't is because my brain just doesn't work that way. If I have discrete elements where the back stitching can all be, is all separate, then I will back stitch as I go. But like in this part, there's no place where things begin and things end at the same time. So I just have a terrible time just thinking that way. So I am going to stitch this because this is just a quarter stitch, and so I found that I can do that. And I don't want to park in the middle or somewhere where it doesn't make sense. 1, 2, 3. Is that right there? Yeah. Okay. So on a piece like this, I save back stitching to the end, and I really enjoy, I actually enjoy backstitching. I enjoy how it makes everything pop. There's only one thing that I kind of don't like about backstitching, and it's that in general, when I finish cross stitching, I think, oh, no, all I have to do is just spend a couple of days backstitching. And if it takes more than that, then I feel like I'm wasting time. So I think it's well known that this chart has lots and lots of backstitch. Oh, cool. Oh, huh. You know what? This is parked in the wrong place. You just saw me make a mistake. So it's supposed to be right there. So with this piece that has a lot of backstitching to do, I have told myself that I'm going to be backstitching for a month. And if it takes me less than a month, I'll be pleasantly surprised, just to get mentally ready for backstitching that much. Yeah, it'll be. I'm actually looking forward to backstitching because I'm looking forward to seeing everything really start to take shape. Like these skaters, when the backstitching is done, they'll look like people instead of just hazy faces. So that'll be really cool. I think this is going to be a really fun piece to backstitch, although it's going to take a lot of time because there is a lot of backstitching to do. Yeah, even in these empty areas like right here, there's backstitching because there's like little designs like right down through here, there's hearts with arrows in them, and there's just all sorts of stuff. So it's almost like the empty areas are black work, so it should be a lot of fun to backstitch. I've also had the question about if I ever have problems with my part threads tangling, and I really don't. They tangle every once in a while, but not very badly. And I find that you'll notice that when I pick up a thread, I pull it from the base where it comes out of the fabric, and that seems to work very well. It seems like pulling the threads out of the bundle like that just seems to the threads just kind of come out. So I don't have any problems with threads tangling. So last night I used my last strand of white that I had on my bobbin. So I'm going to be starting my third skein of white, which that is a lot of white. And I think that I'm through the worst of the white. I finished all of this down through here. That's all done, and I think there's just a little bit up here, and then there's a little bit down here in this girl, and I think that's about the end. I'm kind of glad. I'm kind of tired of white. It just seems like all I've been stitching is white. Okay, so 1, 2. People I'm sure that you watch me stitch and you see me threading needles all the time, and it might be driving some of you crazy. It did me a little, when I first started stitching this way, it kind of drove me a little bit crazy too, but I've gotten used to threading needles, and it may seem like I'm losing a lot of time doing that, but before I started, oh, okay. Before I started stitching this way, I was basically stitching cross country, and I spent so much time counting and making sure that I didn't make mistakes and fixing my mistakes that I found that parking actually saves me time, and I actually, even though I'm threading the needles so much, I don't have to count. I don't have to count a whole lot, and I don't make as many mistakes as I used to. And so I think that more than makes up for all of the needle threading that I do. So it may seem tedious, but for me, it's worth it to do it this way. So now you probably know what time it is. I've done a couple of test videos and to figure out how to do this, and when I've listened back to them, I've always been kind of surprised at how you can hear our clocks ring about all the noises that I don't normally hear. There's my grandfather clock, and then I have a cuckoo clock. And you can hear the cuckoo clock ticking, and you're gonna hear the cuckoo clock start cuckooing in just a little bit. So I'll just warn you of that. There it goes. My kids love the cuckoo clock. I love the cuckoo clock. I bought that in Germany, and it's not a really fancy one. I mean, I was just a high school student when I bought it, but I really love the cuckoo. I'm stitching this on Monaco, 28 count Monaco, and one of the reasons that I chose Monaco is that the weave is so dense that the holes are really small, and because of all the back stitching I'm going to have to do, I thought that maybe that would make it so that I could carry my threads a little bit more than normal and not have to worry about them showing through. But I haven't really enjoyed this fabric as much as I thought I would. I've stitched on Monaco before, and I actually really liked it. It was white. I don't know if it was because of the color, but it's just so tight that sometimes it feels like a real chore to pull the needle through the threads. And I don't know, I don't know if this is true, but it feels like it kind of compresses the floss a little bit and makes it like, I don't know how to explain it. Almost like it makes it so the floss isn't quite as fluffy when it comes through the fabric. So this design has a lot of quarter stitches, and I don't really mind doing quarter stitches. This is really funny. Man. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. I still have that quarter stitch in the wrong place. Okay, now we're back to where we were, and this stitch is in the right place. I decided to edit out all of my correcting that, so you didn't have to watch that. So I'm just gonna pick up where I left off. And I was saying that I don't generally have problems with quarter stitches, and it's kind of embarrassing that I just had a big problem right while I was talking about that. Okay. And then so there's that, and then that, and now I have to figure out where I'm gonna go. So this is 1, 2, I think right there. Yeah, and that matches. I just checked my chart, and I'm right next to this parked thread, which is where I should be, so that makes me happy. Okay. And then that I'm gonna park right here. I don't have to count because, okay, now this looks like it's parked in the wrong place. So we'll fix this really quick. Okay. Oh, this goes right here. Okay, it may not look like much, but that's her glove. And let's Okay, so that looks like it's the last time I will use that color, and I could end it off, but I have enough of a length, and I think that it's not too far to carry back up here. That's where I'll use that again, so I'm going to do that. I get lazy when it comes to ending threads when I can carry them to the next diagonal. Okay. So the weather's been really nice here in Arizona. In fact, today we're supposed to get close to 80, which I don't know. I like it in the 70s or 60s, so it seems like it's a little bit too early for us to be hitting 80. That means 90s in February. And I don't like 90s in February. So I know that back east that it's been really cold, but here in the west it hasn't really been all that bad a winter so far. When we went up to Utah, there was hardly any snow in Utah, and I think the ski resorts are kind of struggling in Utah. And there's a little bit of snow. There was a little bit of snow in Idaho, but not as much as there has been in other years. I mean, it seems to go one way or another. And so I've kind of noticed that trend, that it seems like if the west is really cold, the east is really warm. And if the east is really warm, the west is really, sorry, if the east is really cold, the west is really warm. So, but we did get a good dose of snow. We didn't freeze like we have in other years, so that was kind of nice. There wasn't not enough snow to actually do anything fun, but that was kind of nice because the roads were good. I didn't have to worry about driving to Logan from Salt Lake in a blizzard. That's never a fun thing, and so it was really kind of good that we didn't have to deal with a bunch of snow. Let me see. Is that white? Yes, that is white. Okay. So this is a blended color, and you'll see how I started it. I learned this from Vana. Vana, thanks so much. That has really been a real lifesaver for me. Makes it so I don't have to start by running under stitches. It's a lot faster. Okay. Whoops. Wow, you get to really see me warts and all today because I missed a stitch, another quarter stitch. So I'm going to pick up this thread and go back and do that stitch. Oops. So since I was gone and visiting, I didn't have a lot of opportunity to watch FlossTube. My parents have limited bandwidth. They live out in the middle of nowhere, and they have satellite internet, and they have limited bandwidth, which means no watching videos there, and it means that and it means that I just didn't have a chance to watch a lot of videos. So I am really behind on FlossTube. I am like at the beginning of January now, and here we are halfway through January. So I feel like I'm missing out on some stuff. I'm trying to trying to get caught up, but I don't have a lot of time to watch. So watching FlossTube is too distracting for me at work. I have to really concentrate, and I can't be watching videos while I'm trying to concentrate. So the only time I have to watch is in the evenings when I'm stitching. And sometimes I watch on the way to and from work, but that's not long enough to really even watch one video. So I'm like really behind. But I hope that you guys all had a great year, great new year, and that you're able to get back into the swing of things. I've really enjoyed stitching on this piece, and I feel like I'm getting close to the end. I'm like I said, I've been working on this since after Christmas, which I think is about 2 or 3 weeks now, and I feel like I'm on the home stretch that I'm really close to getting it finished, and I really feel driven to do that. So to get it finished and to be able to do it. My diagonals are getting shorter. Pretty soon I'm not going to have to, so you'll see, you probably can't see, but my diagonal is too long to fit inside my scroll frame, so I have to scroll up and down as I move along the diagonal. It used to be that I had to do that like 3 times. Now I only have to do it once, so it feels like it's getting a lot shorter, and I'm really close to not having to scroll at all. I'm really close to it fitting inside the scroll frame. That's cool. That means that I am really close to getting it done, because it's just pretty soon it'll be like nothing to stitch a diagonal in. And then things will really go fast. I think they're going to go faster than they have, because once I finish this scene, there's a lot of space. There's a lot of space over here around this heart. And then there's like a skate with roses in it up here. And there's a lot of space around that too. So I think I'm going to speed up in my coverage. And that, I'm looking forward to that. So I don't know if you can, it's probably just so that you can see what you're seeing. This is actually the fur edge of the hood of her coat. So yeah, as I'm stitching that, now that I've stitched it, it's more obvious that that's what that is. So and then I forgot about this stitch down here. Okay. There we go. That is it for that color, and I am going to park that up here. Oh, that's right. That's why. I was a little bit confused there for a minute. 2 stitches, and then I have to end it off. Cool. I'll just slide that under there. And you'll see I closed off a stitch up here. That wasn't on purpose. That was kind of, I wasn't paying attention. So sometimes but because I always stitch so that the thread on the back, I try to stitch so that the thread on the back goes diagonally and doesn't extend. It shouldn't be too hard to put that stitch in without causing problems. It should be fine. We'll see when I get there. You know what, I think it's going to be better if I come up on this corner. And then one more stitch, and this block will be completed. Awesome. There you go. One more block down. So, yeah, my camera says that took an hour to stitch, but I think that was because of all of the mistakes that I made. I hope that you enjoyed watching it just for fun. You've seen it, but this is the way my back looks. You see I have these threads carrying a long way, but when I come back with the next diagonal, they'll be covered over and they won't look too bad. So that's the way my back looks. I don't have any carries really across empty spaces, and that's what I think is the most important. So I'm going to do my Saturday chores today and get ready. My wife is away. She's still up in Utah. She's flying home today with my oldest son. So I've got to get the house ready for her so that she doesn't feel like she's coming home to a mess. Got a whole bunch of other stuff to do. So anyway, I hope that you have a great day, and we will talk to you later. Goodbye.